What's going on, golf addicts? Welcome to Tour Junkies After Dark, presented by DraftKings. We are the Tour Junkies. I'm David Barnett. I got Pat Perry with me. We are here to break down the next stop on the PGA Tour schedule, which is the Shriners Hospital for Children Open 2020. There's so many S's, and I want to add an S after every word. I want to say Shriners Hospitals for Children's Open.
Hospitals.
It is hospitals?
Hospitals.
See, I can't get it right. I can't get it right.
We're in Las Vegas, Nevada, though, baby.
Vegas, baby. Vegas, baby. Let's get into this. Now, this show 2 weeks ago gave you 150-1 outright winner Hudson Swafford. So pay attention, people. While you're at it, give it a thumbs up if you don't mind. Subscribe to the DraftKings channel. It would be much appreciated. We're going to have Pat tell you about the golf course, what it's going to take to play well here in Las Vegas. Then we're going to talk about a couple names that we just disagreed with. We just recorded our own podcast over on Tour Junkies. If you want to check that out, anywhere you listen to podcasts or our YouTube channel, you can listen. But we're going to talk about two names that we just vehemently disagreed with. And then we're going to get into our sportsbook plays of the week, kind of some early names we're looking at here on Monday night for the Shriners. All right, Pat, tell us about the golf course, what the people need to know.
First off, you said we vehemently disagreed with.
Yes,
vehemently. You disagreed, not me necessarily, right? You're like talking about yourself there, right?
You disagreed with me disagreeing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about the course. We're at TPC Summerlin this week. It is a great course. It's a par 71 playing 7,255 yards. We got 144 players in the week. T60 or in the field this week. T65 and ties will make the cut. Typically, this is a very easy course. We see about 20 under win most years. So scoring is going to be one of those stats that I'm going to look at, birdie or better percentage, that kind of thing. Now, Patrick Cantlay did win this thing in 2017 at 9 under. I don't think that's what you're going to see this year. The weather was extremely just wacky that year. So I'm not looking at that as far as scoring is concerned. This is a week where you've got to score. It is a course, though, where there's not a whole lot of danger off the tee. Only 4 holes have water off the tee, or water that comes in play either around the green or off the tee. But driving accuracy has shown to be a decent stat to look at when it comes to the guys that have finished up near the top every single year the last few years. Now, do you want some distance? Of course. But I'm just saying that if you're accurate off the tee, it's going to give yourself a chance to attack these greens, to make some birdies, and that kind of, even though the rough hit and all that penal, you still need to hit the fairways on this course. I think that's important to look at this week. I'm just looking at your all-around good ball strikers, your good scramblers, your guys that can score, all of that. I think that's important this week. Stats for me, other than what I just mentioned, course history, I think plays a little bit higher of a, you can weight that a little bit more this week. I like recent form as well. I mentioned ball striking, driving accuracy, and scrambling. Your past champs, Kevin Na in 2019. You had Bryson the year before that. Patrick Cantlay, I mentioned, in a weird year where the weather was just very tough in 2017. Rod Pampling in 2016. Old Rod and like figuratively.
Old crusty Rod.
Yeah. And then Smiley Kaufman in 2015. He burst onto the scene.
Young crusty Smiley.
With a final round, I believe like 62 or 63 to win the tournament. So those are your past champs. DB, any other thoughts on this course, things you might need to note? As far as, by the way, I didn't mention this. The grass surface, you got Bermuda tee to green, but bent grass greens, which is important to know this week. They're going to get them running pretty quick. There's not a whole lot of undulation. I don't think they play all that difficult, but they are on bent grass greens this week. So there you go.
Well, you keep failing to mention that this is played at a little bit of at elevation. The ball's going to go a little further. distance always
All
an
the more reason
advantage.
to like some of the guys that I talked about that were shorter hitters that you were hating on.
Well, that means the
All the
longer
more reason.
guys are just longer. So, yeah, I mean, in fairness, I don't believe that distance is a prerequisite to win here, a la Kevin Na last year at 23 under. You're going to see a lot of stuff floating around about local guys, right? Guys that live here, guys that play out of here, guys that went to UNLV. There's a ton of that. This is what we know. Having talked to many PJ Tour players and caddies over the last 5 years, it's hard to know where that benefits a guy and where a guy just can't stand that, because these guys have a lot of obligations when it's a home team event, home course event, whether it's tickets, places for people to stay. Obviously, you don't have that issue now with COVID, but just because it's a familiar spot doesn't mean they're super comfortable or it's a different feeling week for them. This year may be different, but I wouldn't put too much weight into that. You do need to know it's at elevation, though. I think that's important. I'm going to lean a little more distance because I think week in and week out, that just pays. Putting on bent grass over the long term, strokes gained approach for sure. Greens and regulation, you got to score. You mentioned it's going to be easy. Looking ahead at the weather, which we don't tend to put a whole lot of weight in until Wednesday night, but looking ahead at the weather, it's going to be very nice. It does look like on the weekend it could get a little windy, little breezy at least one day on the weekend to give these guys some troubles. But I think winning score 18 under to 20 or more is very feasible. So you need guys making birdies in good form. Tough to come to a birdie fest in bad form and expect to shoot 20 under. Just tough to do. Let's get into this, Pat. I am not a fan of a play that you've made in the 8K range. I believe it's 8K range. I don't like the price on Zach Johnson at I believe $8,500. That is a lot. Is this 2000? Is this 2008 right now? Did we rewind to 2008? Why is Zach Johnson more than Cam Davis or Sebastian Munoz, Doc Redman, your boy Denny McCarthy? Like, why is he more expensive than these people? I think it's a horrible value. I don't like the short knocking nature that is Zach Johnson. He's got a pretty weak history here with a miscut and a 40th place finish. 8,500. That's a lot for Zach Johnson. I will pass. You attempt to defend yourself and save face with the people.
Okay, well, here's the thing with Zach Johnson.
While I
First
drink a
off,
beer.
I think the price is maybe a little bit high, but I think he's going to be extremely low owned.
Because
there's not like if you're playing him in a tournament, which is what I talked about on the show. I'm playing him as a tournament play. He's actually playing pretty well recently. He had a T8 at the U.S. Open on a course that was long as that you do have to hit fairways, but it was long. And he finished T8, and everybody talks about how short he is and whatever else, but he still had a strong finish there on a very tough course. Followed that up last week with a T23. So I think that's where your price is getting, that's where that's coming in because he's in good recent form. You look at the stats, across the board, he's really good. He's 28th in ball striking. He's number 4 in the field in strokes gained approach. He's 14th in opportunities gained, which is a scoring stat that you and I both like and look at. He's 26th in birdie or better percentage. Does check the box in driving accuracy, which he should. And he putts extremely well on bent grass greens, which we know not only historically, but obviously you look at the Masters winning there and good history there. He putts well on those courses. So I don't think that's all that bad for Zach Johnson at 8,500. When you're getting them very low owned, I'm okay with that. So if you don't want to play them, that's fine. I think you're missing out. I think you're going to a guy like Cam Davis, who's going to be higher owned. I think you're going to a guy like Louis Oosthuizen, who's higher owned, or Joaquin Niemann, who's higher owned. If you want probably the least owned guy in this category, it is probably going to be
for a reason.
Zach Johnson.
For a good reason.
With a lot of upside. So there you go.
All right. You got anybody for me?
Yes, I do have somebody for you. And I'm taking this a little bit of a different direction. I'm not going to say a guy that you picked that I don't like. I'm going to say a guy that you did not pick that I wonder why you did not pick him. And that is Mr. Hideki Matsuyama, who I know you typically like. And now, look, there's a little bit of a stigma around you, DB, with taking Hideki. But I want to know, I think you look at him at 9,900, and a lot of people are talking about Morikawa, Finau, Cantlay, who's played incredibly well here, Wolf, who's been playing good. You've got all those guys. Why would you not take Hideki this week at probably low ownership? And I just wonder why you don't even mention him. I think he's at least worth a mention, and I'm surprised you, a Hideki fan, did not mention him this week.
I am a Hideki truther, and it has paid off recently. Played here last year, played quite well. Played here in 2016, I believe, was the time before that. T16 last year, T10 the year before, 2016, 2015, whatever it was. So good record here. Actually, clearly my picks were just amazing because you couldn't think of any other player. I didn't mention Hideki because we don't mention every single name on the freaking podcast. I tried to plant
but
my
he's
flag
a
on a few
polarizing
names.
player that you've picked like
But
every.
why is he that polarizing? I've been picking him. He's been doing well. I mean, if you hate top 20s, then you hate Hideki. Give me a break. I like Hideki this week. I do. I don't hate him. I don't care about the fairways that he misses. I don't really care. I'm not as big on as you are on hitting fairways this week. I just think you got to plant your flags. You can only play so many players up here in this range, and he just wasn't a player I named. Now, if he does turn out to be significantly lower owned, 12%, 10% owned in tournaments, which, we feel like we talked about this on the show, ownership is going to be pretty spread out, I think, from your Sung JM at 9,300 up to Bryson at 11,800. I think, you're going to see ownership pretty spread out. You're not going to have guys 25, 28% owned like we've seen the last couple of weeks. So you could really plant your flag on any of these guys, and I think just make up the ownership leverage somewhere else. But Hideki's just a name it just didn't come out of my mouth. Maybe it's because I know that as soon as I say it, you and everybody else are going to be like, oh, here comes David and Hideki. Well, I don't know. It's because he's freaking good. What do you want me to tell you? I think he's good. I will not fade Hideki. If you want to, if somebody comes to us and says, I really want to play Hideki because of this, talk me out of him, I would say, no, play him. I have no reason to fade him other than you can't play everybody. You just can't. So.
No, I agree with that.
You got to listen to the
I wanted to get
Junkies.
the Hideki truthers' opinion on Hideki since we didn't really get to it into the show. Might as well talk about it on DK After Dark. Moving on, I don't have anything else other than let's talk about some bets.
Let's get into it. Outright bets for the Shriners. I'll start. A guy that has actually gotten longer today as of recording this podcast, Louis Oosthuizen, at 45-1 is where I would start my betting card here. I'm not going to start it short. Don't come to the Tour Junkies for the short numbers. We're not going to give them to you. Screw that. This is golf. It's crazy. So Louis Oosthuizen 45-1, great form. Checks all the boxes. Why not? Then I'm going to go with my boy Siwoo Kim, who I've been riding. Siwoo is going to give you a pretty low floor, but a pretty high ceiling for the most part. Okay, in good form, checks all the boxes. Aggressive player, can win in a birdie fest. His best putting surface is bent grass greens, which we have here. He is at 70-1 on DK Sportsbook. Now I'm going to get into some longer numbers for you. I'm going to give you. Let me go off the reservation here. I'm gonna get real long. Adam Hadwin, Canadian, good ball striker, fantastic putter, known for that. But you look at his recent form, you're like, I don't know, not great. But look at the golf courses and the strength of field that is present there with his recent form. The U.S. Open, Olympia Fields at the BMW, the PGA, the WGC events. Like, he's played in some tough events. He hasn't really played in a real cupcake event. So the form, I think, is misleading. The number is 140 to 1. He's a PGA Tour winner. He's a good player. I think 140 to 1 is too long for Adam Hadwin. Then two more just absolute bombs for outrights. I'm going to go with the Georgia boy, Sepp Straka, 175 to 1. Loves bent grass putting surfaces, hits it a mile. Ball striking is there. Can take advantage of the 3 par 5s here, get you some eagles. He can win in a scoring fest, looking for his first PGA Tour victory. 175 to 1 is a big number for a guy who's been playing good. I like the ball striking opportunity there for Straka. And then finally, Zhenjun Zhang, big time long shot at 225 to 1. But I would argue really shouldn't be any longer than a Sepp Straka or maybe even an Adam Hadwin. If you look at his recent form, he's either miscut or top 15. There's really not a lot in between. He's a good putter, decent ball striker, a little iffy at times, but his form is like miscut or freaking lights out. He can't close the deal on Sunday. 225 to 1 is a super long number for a guy like Zhenjun. Now, over the last 3 years, we've definitely seen the winner at shorter numbers. Last year, Kevin Na was at 60 to 1. The year before that, Bryson DeChambeau at 14 to 1. The year before that, Patrick Cantlay at 20 to 1. But prior to, you mentioned Rod Pampling as a previous winner. Smiley Kaufman's a previous winner. Pampling was at 300 to 1. Kaufman at 250 to 1. And before that, Ben Martin at 225 to 1. So even though this feels a little stronger, chances are the cream's going to rise to the top. I do think you could have some of these guys in decent form from long shots out could come up and win this tournament.
Okay, well, I agree. I think that, I do like the long shots this week, but I feel like the winner is going to come anywhere from 100 to 1 in. So that's kind of where I focus a little bit as far as my bets are concerned. The shortest bet that I do like, and as a guy that I didn't mention on the VFS show, and that is Ricky Fowler at 35 to 1. I think that's a good number for him in a field this strong. You're getting him at 35 to 1. I like that. I like Joaquin Niemann at 70 to 1. I think that's a good number for him as well. I definitely think he has some win equity on this course. I like Doc Redman also at 70 to 1. I think that's a good number for him. And I like Abraham Answer a little bit shorter than that at 60 to 1. I think that's another good number for him. Actually, as I look at it, Abraham Answer was 60 to 1. He's now 55 to 1. So obviously, there's been a little bit of a change there with him. So I think that's something to look at. From a longer standpoint, I like our boy Joel Damon at 140 to 1. I think that's a good number. Adam Hadwin, I had already written down. You stole him from me, so I can't talk about him. And then the last guy that I like a lot is Scott Stallings at 110 to 1. I like him in DFS. I like him this week on this course. He's won a PGA Tour event before. He has some win equity. So I do like some Scott Stallings at 110 to 1. So there you go. Those are my plays for the DK Sportsbook.
I do have a couple top 10s here. I think Straka, who I mentioned, Damon, who you mentioned, Hadwin, who we both mentioned. Straka's 14 to 1 as a top 10. Damon and Hadwin 12 to 1 at a top 10 number. I think it could happen here. So there you go. Birdie Fest opens it up to just about anybody's game in a Birdie Fest. So you got to open it up, even though this field's stronger. Anybody can get hot for 4 rounds and go stupid low and shoot 20 under, a la Rod Pampling. So hope you guys enjoyed the show. TJ After Dark, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And may your screens be green. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. See ya.
Out.